Mr. Chomal, I will caution you in making certain statements on the judiciary. Obviously, calling orders illegal or unconstitutional cannot apply, because it's the judiciary that makes the laws at the end of the day. But yes, your moot point, fair enough, is that judicial overreach is happening. Sabiha Ahmed, quickly drawing you in here. Sabiha Ahmed, as far as, of course, no stay granted today, what do you make of that big order by the Supreme Court? Is it a win for the side of who have enacted the Waqf legislation?
What is that to me?
Sabiha, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you please repeat the question? Sorry, I just overheard.
Okay, I think we're having some, yes, I think your frame also, we're having trouble with it. I'll come to you. Let me draw in at this point Sufi Mohammad, Kausar, HASSAN, Majidi. Sufi Mohammad, Kausar, HASSAN, Majidi, your first reaction to how the Waqf appeals have panned out. Yesterday, of course, the hearing happened. Today, too, an order dictated for the time being, an interim order. Do you welcome it, or were you expecting more?
देखिए, तो हमारी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। सबसे पहले तो मैं आपका धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं। देखिए, ये तो हमारी बहुत पुरानी मांग थी और आज भी है कि वक्फ के कानूनों में संशोधन किया जाए, लेकिन जिस प्रकार से ये चीजें लाई गई, कहीं ना कहीं इसमें पहले से खतरे की घंटी जो है वो दिखाई दे रही थी। जिस तरीके से आधा अधूरा इसको लाया गया कि जो एक बड़ा पुराना कानून है कि इसमें वक्फ में वही लोग शामिल हो सकते हैं जिनकी 1 लाख से अधिक आमदनी वाले वक्फ हों, तो ये दोहरा मापदंड है। दूसरी बात, जिस तरीके से वक्फ बाय यूजर को लेकर के ये मामला हो रहा है, ये तो बड़ा चिंता का विषय है। चिंता का विषय इसलिए है कि मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल देना चाहता हूँ, छोटा सा एग्जांपल, मैं अपने स्वयं के गांव का, कि मेरे गांव में मेरा अपना निजी कब्रिस्तान है जो कि रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्ड में दर्ज है। उस पर तमाम कब्रें और मतलब मज़ारें हमारे बुजुर्गों की बनी हुई हैं। उन कब्रों और मज़ारों की बुनियाद पर वक्फ बोर्ड ने बाय यूजर कह करके उसको अपने में शामिल कर लिया। अब हम इसकी कंप्लेन लेकर के जाएंगे वक्फ बोर्ड के पास, तो वक्फ बोर्ड सुनवाई करेगा। उसके बाद अगर हमारे पक्ष में आर्डर नहीं आता तो हम ट्रिब्यूनल में जाएंगे। तो इस तरीके से मतलब हमको अपनी जमीन को बचाने के लिए कितना संघर्ष करना पड़ता था। अब उस पर अगर कोई चीज आई है तो उस पर विरोधाभासी चीजें हो रही हैं। तो कहीं ना कहीं चूंकि मामला सुप्रीम कोर्ट से जुड़ा हुआ है, इस विषय में किसी भी प्रकार की कोई टिप्पणी किया जाना भी उचित नहीं हो सकता है, क्योंकि ये हमारे देश का सर्वोच्च संवैधानिक आईनी अदारा है। अब इसका जो भी निर्णय होगा वो सभी को कबूल करना चाहिए। इससे पहले भी इस देश के मुसलमानों ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जो भी निर्णय हुए थे वो बखुशी कबूल किए थे। अब इस मामले में जो भी निर्णय होगा उसको कबूल करेंगे।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। और अब मैं आपसे ये भी पूछूंगा कि जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि सिर्फ 5 रिट पेटिशंस होने चाहिए, सिर्फ 5 पेटिशनर्स होने चाहिए जो मुख्य हैं, क्योंकि हम देख रहे थे कि बहुत से लोग जो हैं पेटिशन फाइल कर रहे थे। कुछ लोग शायद पब्लिसिटी के लिए, कुछ लोग पॉलिटिकल रीजंस के लिए। तो क्या आपको लगता है ये भी एक अच्छा फैसला है कि सिर्फ 5 अब पेटिशंस होंगे मेंटेनेबल कोर्ट के सामने, ताकि वही 5 वकील आर्ग्यू करे, ताकि कोर्ट रूम भी ना भरे और जुडिशरी भी बैकलॉग ना हो ज्यादा?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, ये तो निर्णय स्वागत योग्य है, क्योंकि ये तो जाहिर सी बात है कि एक पब्लिसिटी से स्टंट होता है, जिसको समझ में आए वो दाखिल कर दे जा करके। बात तो वही होगी ना, चाहे उसको 25 लोग करें या 5 लोग करें या 5000 लोग करें। तो अगर उन्होंने उसको 5 से अधिक का कोई फाउंडेशन लगाई है तो ये निर्णय स्वागत योग्य है और इसमें किसी भी प्रकार का किसी को शक नहीं करना चाहिए देश की सबसे बड़ी संवैधानिक संस्था के ऊपर।
जी बिल्कुल। Bhaskar Ghosh, let me bring you in here. Bhaskar Ghosh of the BJP, how do you view the Supreme Court hearing today, and what do you make of the order that came? At the end of the day, of course, status quo will be maintained. The Supreme Court also taking on record the assurance given by the Solicitor General of India, but of course not a complete stay as the petitioners wanted. Bhaskar, can you hear me? Okay, I think we're having trouble with his connection as well, unfortunately. Let me bring in Nikhil Jain at this point. Nikhil, much awaited, of course, interim order today in this high-profile case on the Waqf Amendment Act. What do you make of how the Supreme Court ruled, and was it a win for the appellants? Was it a win for the government, or do you believe it's too early to say?
The government or the petitioners, but what I would say is that so far as it seems, the court does not seem to agree with the kind of amendments that the centre has brought in. Also, at this juncture, I would like to make it very clear to our viewers as a lawyer that it is perfectly all right to criticize a judgment of the Supreme Court, call it arbitrary, illegal, unconstitutional, so long as you are not imputing any malice on the court or the judges. It's a constitutional right. That being said, it's a little sad for me that Mr. Chomal, who I believe is an advocate himself, and the Vice President of India, who also happened to be a senior advocate before he ventured into active politics, they are talking about things which are completely against the constitutional scheme. The Constitution of India very clearly provides for the constitutional courts of the country.
Okay, now that is a separate debate. I don't want to get into that. That is a separate debate. Yes, you have given your point against what Naveen Chomal has said. Fair enough. Now let's come back to the issue at hand.
Yes, absolutely. That is what I'm talking about. That judicial overview under the writ jurisdiction is something that is explicitly provided for in the Constitution, which includes the power of the Supreme Court to nullify, cancel, stay, legislative orders, government orders, including legislation passed by the Parliament and the State Assembly. Then time and again they've done that. Sections of different laws have been struck down or modified by the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court in its wisdom felt that it does not align with the scheme of the Constitution. It's ultra vires. That's perfectly all right. And what is happening in the Waqf Act, as pretty much most of the opposition in the country, all of the opposition in the country, more than 240 or 230 members of parliament in the Lok Sabha voted against this bill, and their objection was precisely that a lot of the provisions being brought in this Waqf Amendment are unconstitutional, illegal, and that is also what the Supreme Court is saying. So for the Vice President of India to sort of create this constitutional crisis and say that the Supreme Court is acting against the principles of democracy, or they're overstepping their line, and how can they go around looking into legislation?
That's a separate issue. That is on the judgment on the President of India and the governors, and of course on the issue of Justice Verma's case. The Vice President has weighed in. He's not spoken on the Waqf Amendment Act. So let's come back to the issue at hand. You've made your point. However, what you haven't spoken at all on today's hearing or today's order.
No, I will speak about today's hearing and today's order. The points that have specifically been raised in terms of how properties have to be specifically registered and within 6 months, if they are not, they have to be denotified as Waqf properties. The Supreme Court has made it clear that nothing is going to change on that, and I'm sure an order would be passed.
Naveen Chomal, your response. Naveen Chomal, your response. Nikhil Jain has clearly rebutted only your points, so you can go ahead.
See, first of all, I'm thankful to Nikhil ji for clarifying to our esteemed viewers also that criticism of Supreme Court, like the words are illegal or unconstitutional, are not unparliamentary. That is a legal point of it. Now, there may be difference of view between Nikhil ji and myself, but please appreciate what the basic fundamental principle is. There is separation of power, and whatever act is passed by the Parliament, its constitutionality is presumed, unless, of course, Supreme Court finds it to be drastically wrong, which is what you said, infringing with our constitution. So now, in this case, when the Supreme Court could not even come to a conclusion that what is the unconstitutional in the Amendment Act of 2025. So before that,
no, they haven't given their final order though. They haven't given their final order. It's just an interim order. They have not given their final order. It's just an interim order. It's just an interim order. It's not a